The Colts have a pretty good group of guys that you know you can count on, but what happens if the biggest question marks on the roster show up and show out? Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. What is up, friends and family? This is Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks of HorseshoeHuddle.com. I'm your resident credentialed media member for the site, and Zach is your resident film expert for the site. And today we're taking a little bit of a different turn, just kind of thinking up some hypotheticals this time around. But, you know, when you look at this Colts roster, you think of several players you know you can count on. Your Quentin Nelsons, DeForest Buckners, and Kenny Moores, guys like that. But the Colts have invested so much in these high-end athletes who need to be groomed and developed. And, you know, we're always told within a couple of years, 2-3 years or whatever, these guys should really be big time. And so now the Colts have kind of a pile of these guys. Some of them for different reasons, you know, one or the other haven't really reached their peak yet. Some of them have been injured. Some of them just are still developing, haven't got that playing time yet. But we're going to look at today, what if these X factors kind of show up and play really, really well for the Colts and take the team to the next level. So we're going to start out here, Zach, with some guys who are either already basically considered starters in the running to start, or they're like the most prominent of these X factor types. And let's just go ahead and get the biggest one out of the way, and that's Anthony Richardson. I mean, the guy's got to win the starting job at quarterback first. But if he plays well, I mean, there's a reason the Colts drafted him in the top 5.
Yeah, and the thing with Anthony Richardson, like obviously every team's X factor on their season is their quarterback. It's a quarterback-driven league.
Sure.
You know, your wins and losses are going to come down to how your quarterback performs. But I think especially so with the Colts, because we've seen this team, you know, honestly since the Phillip Rivers year, where they've been able to get in that playoff hunt with bad quarterback play. You know, each and every year. I mean, the best quarterback season since that Phillip Rivers year was probably Gardner Minshew, the first year with Shane Steichen in 2023. And that wasn't some lights out season. So, you know, for the Colts, if they can just get adequate quarterback play with a roster that features some of these like low variance players that you mentioned, like Quentin Nelson, like DeForest Buckner, Charvarius Ward stepping in here, like we know what these guys are going to be. But if they can just get some semblance of consistent quarterback play, they can be a playoff team. So, yeah, the biggest X factor for sure is Anthony Richardson, and again, that'd be the case for every team with their quarterback, but especially for this young player who, you know, the Colts invested a top 5 pick in.
Yeah, and it's not one of those things where you're getting like average quarterback play where you know what you're getting week in and week out, because Anthony wouldn't even qualify for this list if that was the case. It's just like he has not reached that consistent peak and ceiling yet, because obviously we know what the Colts vision was when they drafted him, you know, to be that alien that competes with Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. He's just very far away from that, obviously. But one of the guys he's going to be throwing to has, you know, he's also got the potential to be a star player, but has left so many people saying, like, what are we doing when he's out there on the field? Now, this guy's only played 1 year. But this feels like a big year coming up for A.D. Mitchell. So the Colts drafted him right around 50. I think it was 51 or 52. But pretty much everyone you heard from who studies the draft was like, yeah, this guy's easily a first-round talent, one of the very best receivers in this draft. But there's just, you know, some maturity stuff there, this and that, just some things that, you know, caused him to slip into that second round. I think we saw a good bit of it as far as the on-field stuff. And he even admitted after the season he had, you know, some maturing to do. But you see a guy who is just, he's such a killer in press coverage and man on man. He embarrasses defenders that way. But it essentially is then once the ball is in the air, everything kind of falls apart. There's been, you know, you look at it and it's hard to argue that he isn't shying away from contact, kind of getting some gator arms there. There's been instances where he's not like at the right depth, or he's not at the place where he's supposed to be to meet the ball, and just a lot of miscommunication. But if you take the player that he's been before the ball is thrown, and you get some of what he's supposed to be from the receiver position and kind of marry that together, I mean, this guy is going to be a stud. Now, I know Pudge kind of feels the same way. We can hear there in the background.
Yeah, my dog is very excited about AD Mitchell for sure. But with AD Mitchell, I don't think there's a bigger variance player on the roster when it comes to the Colts in terms of this could be the worst player on the roster or the best player on the roster. Mm-hmm. And those could be realistic realms of possibility for this player. Like, he is so talented at just creating separation and beating man-to-man coverage, winning off the line of scrimmage, and being that true isolation threat that the Colts were looking for. And there's a lot of things he does right before the ball is thrown. He just needs to grow in so many areas in terms of physicality, in terms of willingness on the field, in terms of, just the cerebral aspect of playing the position. But this was really the guy I thought of first when you mentioned this topic, because again, when we're talking about this topic, the guys like the Buckners and the Nelsons, those guys establish the floor of your roster. They're going to be the same guy day in and day out. They're going to be your top players. They're going to produce for you every single game. But what the guys like AD Mitchell or Anthony Richardson do, those are the guys that determine if you make the playoffs or not. Because if they step up alongside your Quentin Nelsons and DeForest Buckners, then you have a really darn good team on your hands. So, yeah, when it comes to Mitchell, man, he's going to be wide receiver 4 coming into camp. He's going to be a rotational type player. And you don't need him to be this superstar player here in year 2, but you want to see those positive steps. You want to see him capitalize on those opportunities. You want to see him go out there and just make football plays. I mean, last year, again, when he was uncontested and he was wide open, we saw some good things there from him. But there were a lot of things where he was like 0 for 5 on contested catch situations. A lot of the 50-50 balls were, we say with receivers turn 50-50s into 60-40s. Well, he was turning them into 35-65s, or 30-70s.
Going the other way.
Yeah, the other way, because he wasn't going up and winning those balls. So just be more physical, be a more dominant ball winner in the air, and he can be a legit star player in this league. It's just, can he take that step here in year 2? That's the biggest question. I fully believe in the potential of AD Mitchell. It's just, can he realize that potential? He's still very young, only 22 years old. There's plenty of time for him. It's just, he's got to figure it out this next season or the season after, because, in the NFL, they don't wait for you.
Right. And the Colts passing game could just be so potent, because you look at what Pittman can do, what Downs can do. Obviously, Alec Pierce just led the NFL in yards per reception. If you just get the mentality of those other 3 guys and you get a little bit of that with AD Mitchell, it could be insane.
Right.
So this next guy we'll close out the segment with. He's been a little bit polarizing, because the rest of the guys in his draft class, some of them were a lot more productive, but for my money, he's just developing. He did fine, but it is very important that he takes the next step and becomes the leader at his position, and that's Laiatu Latu. The Colts, drafted him at 15 overall to be the next in line of those Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis closers. That was their expectations. And he had his moments. There was a couple, I think he had 3 forced fumbles. There was a couple times where he got sacks late in the 4th quarter or in super timely situations. It just so happened he got a little overshadowed by some guys in his draft class. But right now, I think he's reached the fine pass rusher level, but they need him to get to that dog. He needs to be the leader in the room now from that pass rushing room. And you can't let a Samson Ebukam 30-year-old coming off an Achilles usurp you as a starter. Quiddy's going to start on the other side, I'm sure, but you have got to take a stranglehold on that job.
Yeah, I think the big thing with Latu, and it's such a big contrast to AD Mitchell, where look, Mitchell, 22 years old, 4-string receiver, just take positive steps. It doesn't need to be all coming together here. And he was a 2nd-round pick. There are expectations of a 2nd-round pick, but they're not as high as a top 15 pick who's going into his age 25 season already. Laiatu Latu had the production at college, had a good step last year as a high-end rotational starter. This year is the year, man. He's going to be a full-time starter. He's getting a coach coming in here who, the second he was hired, was yeah, we really like Laiatu Latu last draft cycle. I'm expecting to unleash him this year. So this is the year for him, man. Like if he churns out another season like last year, it's kind of a disappointment. Like that first year was good for year one. Like that's perfectly fine. Even if we're factoring in the Jared Verses and Chop Robinsons of the world, it's still a perfectly fine first year. But if the second year looks much of the same, then we have to start being concerned because he'd be a 25-year-old pass rusher as the guy, just not becoming the guy. So we got to see him bring that missed tackle rate down. We got to see more, big plays from him this next season, more consistency at affecting the quarterback. But I think there are a lot of good things in place with him. I think he can be a good player this next season. I know the Colts and even some players on the roster like DeForest Buckner are very, very high on his potential going forward. So I do fully expect him to be a productive player this year. But the biggest if for him is, can he take that step from productive player to very good pass rusher? Because that's what the Colts drafted him to be. And going into his age 25 season, he does need to be a very good pass rusher here, being a top 15 pick like he was in 2024.
Yeah, I think any complete defense needs to have that dominant pass rusher to it, or like the clear leader in the room there. So I'm pretty sure Lou Anarumo would love to have Latu kind of grace him with that role there. So coming up, guys, we're going to talk about some of these guys have been injured and they could pop up and do some nice things. They're rotational guys that could really grab a more prominent role. There's some more guys on the list who could really open some eyes. As a small business owner, your work does not end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can actually help you write job descriptions as well, and then they quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring friend to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. I've seen it out there, and it seems like there's a lot of engagement and interaction on those posts as well. So it seems pretty legit. It's no wonder that 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Zach, let's start with this first guy who technically was supposed to be part of the first segment, but perfectly winds up in here with guys who were injured. It could still open some eyes. That's Jalen Carlisle. That's your new starting will linebacker. Going to have a huge role as well as as it goes to plan. This should be a 1,000-snap guy for you. The Colts are really only going to use 2 linebackers this year. Some of them are going to be defensive backs coming into play, but really, Jalen Carlisle is your new EJ Speed. So he played in 10 games last year as a rookie and really doesn't have any competition for that role. So when you look at him, you say, all right, there's no choice. This guy has to look good. There's nobody else. It's, what are you going to do? Start Shegu Alubi? That may be okay, but that's an even bigger question mark. So Jalen Carlisle is going into year 2, a lot on his plate.
Yeah, Jalen Carlisle, I believe, is the lone new defensive starter from last season. That's not some big-time free agent signing.
Right.
If we're looking at all the new faces coming in here, you're getting Charvarius Ward, you're getting Cameron Bynum, who are clear upgrades at their position. But the only new defensive starter besides them is going to be Jalen Carlisle, who I think he showed a lot of good things last year. It is probably a big jump to put him out there as a full-time starter. But again, when we're talking about biggest X factors on this defense, a common quote that you hear with sports and a lot of things when it comes to just like units and lines and stuff like that is you're only as good as your weakest player. So a big thing for Jalen Carlisle is just go out there and play a Simon Sound football. Don't be that big weakness, that big, weakest player on this team. And this team will be fine here. He's going to be surrounded by a lot of players who have been there, done that, a lot of high-end veterans and Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner, all these guys around them, Zaire Franklin, coming off an all-pro season next to him. So he's going to be set up for success, especially in this system with Lou Anarumo, where he'll be blitzing a lot and doing a lot of things that he did last year. So I'm high on Jalen Carlisle. I think he can do it, but we'll just have to see if he could step up. Former day 3 pick getting an opportunity like this in year 3 and year 2 is kind of a crazy jump up. But I fully expect him to be able to be a solid player, especially with the quality players the Colts have around him.
Yeah, I'm going to put a lot of pressure on him because I was looking at Cato June's numbers, when he became a starter with the Colts. Similar background, was a safety in college, came in to be a will linebacker with the Colts. And Cato's first full year starting had 100 tackles. I think it was like 9 pass breakups. Like, it had a decent year. But then year 2, which I don't know where you want to put Carlisle in his development, his second full year of starting was like 5 picks, two interceptions for touchdowns. I think that's like when the Colts won the Super Bowl as well. So I have very high expectations.
I was about to say high expectations for him and for the team, I guess, is what you're saying here.
Right, for sure. No, so we've got a lot of extra big names in here to fit in. So we'll kind of play a lightning round here. One of the biggest ones for me is Jelani Woods. We've all forgot about Jelani Woods. He's been 2 years injured, but just think about the hype train that was going for Jelani Woods after his rookie year. Dude was a mismatch nightmare, was even more of like a physical freak mismatch player at tight end than Tyler Warren, like with a higher ceiling. Like, Tyler Warren has just done incredible things in college, but in terms of prospects, like, the ceiling was crazy. So Jelani Woods, if he stays healthy, number one, I'm not even positive that he makes the roster at this point because they love what Mo Alley-Cox can do. They love what Drew Ogletree can do. So we'll see. If he makes it through training camp healthy, could be a huge X factor there. And then the rest of the other guys who were injured, Juju Brents, kind of the same story there, but has maybe played a little bit more. And then Samson Ebukam, 30 years old, coming off the Achilles. I don't have huge expectations for him, but he did lead the team in sacks a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think when I view those 3 players here going into the next season, it brings me back to my childhood where my dad would bring us like $1 lottery tickets for Christmas or for birthdays and stuff. They would just be the throw-ons, like in your stocking, you get like those couple like $1 lottery tickets. And like, if you win like $5 on that $1 lottery ticket, awesome. You just made $5 on this. Heck, I would take a $1 on the $1 lottery ticket at this point. That's kind of what I view these 3 players where, like, Jelani Woods, if you get any return on this whatsoever this season, that's a big win because at this point, you've already moved on by drafting Tyler Warren. You have Drew Ogletree as your blocking tight. You brought back Mo Alley-Cox. Like, if you get anything out of Jelani Woods, massive win this season. Same thing with Juju Brents, where you were kind of operating like he's not going to be here. So if you get anything out of him, that'll be huge. And then with Ebukam, like, you're paying him more, and he has more recent production than the other 2. But again, the history is not great for a 30-year-old coming off an Achilles injury as a pass rusher. So for me personally, if they get anything out of these 3 players, like if they even make the roster, these 3 players, that's a win in my book, But again, when we're talking about like variance players, like if these guys can just give some kind of plus return on investment, that's the difference between winning and losing some games is getting these like between the cracks type players actually on the field and playing. So I don't know what the expectation should be for these 3 guys, but
very little.
But they're kind of just like low risk lottery tickets at this point. You're not going to get the highest return on them probably, but like if you get any return on them at this point, I feel like that's a win for your team.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason we're even talking about them is because there is upside there. Otherwise they're just, I don't want to say guys who don't matter, but there's nothing to report on there. So these other guys, it's another small group. These are rotational players who I think will have some sort of role regardless. But if like an injury happens in front of them or something, they could really surprise some people. So we got Shegu Alubi, who for all intents and purposes is the 3rd linebacker. If they're ever in base, he's probably going to be your Sam. DJ Giddens, the running back, who's going to be behind Jonathan Taylor at minimum, maybe Khalil Herbert as well. Jalen Travis. I imagine he'll come in some jumbo sets, just like by design. But then we know with the Colts, there's going to be injuries. Bernard Ryman and Braden Smith both have a history of essentially every year missing at least a little bit of time. And then our boy Adetomiwa Adebawore. Like, I think if it's about on schedule, other than the rookies, we don't really know. But it's about time for those guys to take another step if they get a little more playing time.
Oh yeah, I love Adetomiwa Adebawore, like very good player. Segu Alubi, one of my favorites, obviously, on the team. You can even throw like an Isaiah Land in there as well. These guys who have been marinating for a couple years, like it's your time to shine, like get out there and do something. But to me, if we're talking about which of this group of players is going to be the most important for wins and losses for the Colts this year, I'm looking at Jalen Travis, because last year, Matt Gonsalves started, 10 games at offensive tackle? I think he had 4 starts at left tackle and 6 at right tackle.
Almost 600 snaps at least.
Yeah.
So.
I think he was like 4th on the offensive line in snaps last year. Like he had a lot of snaps and played a lot of football for the team, and that was your your swing offensive tackle for the team. So if Jalen Travis wins that job out of camp, like we expected to, he's going to play a lot of football this year. The swing tackle on the Indianapolis Colts plays a lot of football because Ryman, I think, has had 2 concussions in the last 3 years, and Braden Smith hasn't played more than 15 games in a season in the last 4 years of his career. So yeah, the swing tackle is going to play a lot in that position right there. If you have bad offensive tackle play, that can lose you football games. We've seen it happen in Indianapolis plenty of times since Anthony Costanzo retired. So I think Jalen Travis is going to be one of the biggest X factors on the team this year, because if he can get out there in his snaps and just give the Colts productive, I don't need him to be some great offensive tackle, just get in the way of pass rushers, and the Colts should be fine on offense. That's all you could ask out of a swing tackle in the NFL. Just get in the way. If he can just do that, the Colts might be able to steal a win that they would otherwise lose if they had bad backup offensive tackle play.
Yeah, I'd like to see him at least a little bit. I don't want anyone to be injured, but I would maybe like to see him more than just in the jumbo sets, because if Braden Smith leaves after this year, he should hopefully be your starting right tackle. So, yeah, sorry, this is the episode where the dogs take it all, everybody. But
yeah,
coming up next, we're talking about dark horses. These guys, some of them may not even be on the team. Who knows? But if given the opportunity, maybe they could open some eyes. All right, I'm going fastball right out of the gate here, Zach. We're talking QB3, Riley Leonard. Now, he is probably going to be inactive other than being the emergency quarterback every week. But, crazier things in this league have happened. Again, he's a dark horse. He's probably not going to see the field, but let's not act like he is at the back of some settled quarterback situation. The Colts aren't probably in love with their quarterback situation up at the top. And, injuries happen. Obviously, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, both of them suffered season-ending injuries 2 years ago. And I think back to the 49ers when they drafted Brock Purdy, much different prospects coming out, mind you. But Kyle Shanahan told John Lynch, after training camp, he's like, I got bad news. I know we got Jimmy Garoppolo. I know we got Trey Lance, but our best quarterback is the dude we just took in the 7th round. So, again, crazier things can happen. Obviously, neither of us wants it to happen. Neither of us came into the draft as a pro Riley Leonard guy, but we're getting weird with this segment, man.
Jake, look, I will say this. If he can be even a semblance of Brock Purdy, I won't complain. That's awesome for the Colts. If you can get a Brock Purdy on a rookie contract, on a 6th-round rookie contract for 4 years, I will gladly take it. Now, some of what you're saying makes sense here, Jake. But when you bring up the Brock Purdy stuff, I have to push back a little bit here. That's a once in a generation type of find for a team. But yeah, look, if Riley Leonard is taking snaps for the Colts this year, either he had the off season of his life and he is just emerged from the cocoon as some beautiful butterfly for this team, and he's just going to be this great quarterback, or something went very wrong if he's taking snaps. And that's probably more likely.
May I present you all of 2022?
Right. And I'm saying that's more likely than the Brock Purdy emergence there. But I will say, look, if you had to put over-under on Riley Leonard offensive snaps for the Colts at 1 this year, I don't know which way I would go with that. Because, again, these 2 quarterbacks in front of him have an injury history. They have inconsistencies in their history as well. And we've seen Sam Ehlinger play a lot with the Colts the last couple of years. So he certainly could factor in this year, but I don't think we want to talk about the scenario where he does factor in this year for the Colts, because that's probably not a good one for the Indianapolis Colts.
We have to explore all scenarios.
We do. It's certainly not off the table because of the quarterbacks in front of him and because of the situation around the Colts. But let's hope we don't see Riley Leonard much. Hopefully he can get those 4 years under his belt and retire with benefits and have a good post-football career.
You know, the wired version of that is Jason Bean, but we're not going to go down that.
Yeah, that's
So-
the Indy star.
Yeah. So one that might be a little more realistic is Anthony Gould. So number one, he's already got a role and is going to see the field as a kickoff returner. The NFL is making adjustments to make kickoffs even more prevalent, even beyond what they did last year. So Gould already going to be touching the ball somewhat regularly. But so he had a good training camp last year. And, you know, Josh Downs missed a little time as the slot receiver. They found a way to make that happen with A.D. Mitchell instead. But I do see a pretty clear path for Gould to get some playing time here. Like, he's not going to be inactive on game days, again, because of the return ability. So this guy could see some snaps on offense, and we know he could take the top off of a defense.
Yeah, I basically call this the Ashton Dulin type of, I guess, like the mindset with players making teams, whereas like as long as you make it so where you're always going to make a football team, you'll get snaps on offense and defense at some point, whichever unit you're a part of. Like Grant Stewart also falls in this, where it's like, as long as you make yourself someone who is always making rosters, you will get time on your respective side of the football, because eventually you have to put the bodies out there and you're getting those reps in practice. So with the way the NFL is, with how grueling it is, I mean, look at the Colts receiving room last year. Downs had multiple injuries. Pittman fought through injuries. Like, nobody's healthy in the NFL. So if you're the fifth string receiver, you're close to being that guy that's playing on Sundays. And if he's a guy who's going to be on the roster because of that kick return ability, because of that punt return ability, he could certainly get a chance on Sundays as well. So yeah, I like Gould. I actually liked his film a lot more than I thought I would during his final year of college play. I think he showed a lot more as a return man late last year. And even if he only is return man, you can be an X factor as a return guy. You know, if you're turning, you know, starting at the 25-yard line into the 35-yard line when they kick it to you, or turning 5-yard punt returns into 10-yard punt returns, those are hidden yards that contribute to winning. So Anthony Gould's going to play a factor in the Colts' wins and losses this year. It's just injuries will come down to how much of a factor and if he gets on the field in offense at all.
Yeah, for sure. Again, like you mentioned, even if all he does is return the ball, possibilities there for a touchdown or two. We've seen it. Next one, sorry, maybe a little boring, guys, but, you know, it's necessary. Dalton Tucker. Now what was it, like 5 games last year after Will Fries went down? And Tony Sperano Jr., you know, waxed poetic about Dalton Tucker yesterday when we talked to him. So he thinks very, very highly of him. And, I mean, we all assume Matt Gonzalez is going to win the starting right guard spot, which he will. But, again, injuries happen. We see this offensive line get banged up all the time. Gonzalez has to miss a little time. Guess who's going in? It's Dalton Tucker in year 2 of his development. And, you know, coming off of a time where he played pretty decent ball to start out last year before things went kind of wayward. But chances are Tucker's going to play a little bit next year.
Yeah, I'm not out on Dalton Tucker. I do think they made the right decision to bench him because it was spiraling for him. And they just need to solidify that right guard spot to get some productive football going that last month of the season last year. But I'm not out on Dalton Tucker. I do think he showed some good things early on when he played last year. Especially against the Jaguars and the Titans. I think those were his first 2 games. And then it kind of went awry from there. But I think Tucker can be a fine backup guard. And it's kind of what we mentioned with Jalen Travis, where it's like, look, for the Colts or for any team in the NFL, backup offensive linemen have to be ready to play. Like, it's just the nature of football. I think Tony Sperano Jr. said that to you guys in your guys talking with him yesterday, where it's like, we prepare all these guys to be ready to start on Sunday because that's the nature of the position of playing offensive line. So, yeah, if Dalton Tucker ends up being their primary guard backup, he becomes a very valuable player. Like, to me, your backup at center, guard, and tackle is among the top, 20 most important players on the team. Like, in terms of like they're gonna play football. And we saw last year when Tucker's play did fall off after those first couple of starts. That could have been the difference between wins and losses because he was getting blown up against the Lions and the Bills. So who knows the way those games go if he's playing better football. So if he can take a step forward and solidify that backup spot, it makes the Colts a better football team. It's probably like your backup offensive linemen are arguably your most important backups on the team besides backup quarterback because they are so vital for wins and losses. So Dalton Tucker, if he wins that backup guard spot, he flies up to being one of your most important players on the roster.
Yeah, we've seen what it looks like when the offensive line play is poor, and I'm pretty confident he can offer some good things. He's going to take a natural step in his development. These next guys are a couple of safeties. One of them is kind of a linebacker safety hybrid. Rookie Hunter Wohler and Daniel Scott. Now, Chris Ballard, this one's for Chris Ballard. He's got to be desperate for Daniel Scott to make it healthy through the offseason, through the summer, into week 1. And you know what? I mean, the Colts aren't flush at safety. Like, if Scott makes it through training camp and looks good, he might have a spot. I mean, I think Wohler does as well. Because, I mean, I don't think they're really married to Rodney Thomas. Those could be your 2 backup safeties. Marcel Dabo got released recently. So, I mean, Wohler and Scott, I mean, obviously with Wohler, he was a draft pick, and he's probably going to play some dime defense for them. Like, already we know that. But Daniel Scott, we don't know what he can do. He's just like Jelani Woods has spent 2 years injured.
Yeah, I fully expect Wohler to be the backup strong safety this year. And I put strong safety in quotations there because it'll be like a dime linebacker type thing. But I do think he's going to be listed as a safety this year, be that backup strong safety, core special teams guy. And I think he will get some run on defense this year in some capacity and like dime looks or, big dime looks and stuff like big nickel looks. I think he'll get on the field. But Daniel Scott, man, probably the longest leash ever for a day 3 pick in terms of just like he's got multiple chances the last couple years to win a roster spot. And now he's going into year 3 of this thing, coming off 2 major injuries where, like, if he has an adequate camp, I think he could knock Rodney Thomas off the roster. So, yeah, Daniel Scott, man, is age 26 season, has not played a snap of NFL football in the regular season, still has a chance to make this team. So, I love Daniel Scott as a prospect when he came out. It's been a while. I'm hoping for his sake he can make it, but, man, it would be a crazy story if he did.
Yeah, an Achilles and an ACL in back-to-back years. Obviously, he's not great. We'll see what kind of – he was a good athlete, so we'll see what kind of explosiveness he has left in him. But, yeah, those are your dark horses. I'm going to say at least one of those guys does something – has a pretty impressive season.
Yeah, look, hopefully it's Dalton Tucker. Dalton Tucker's the most important one there when it comes to it. So, yeah, I really hope it is him. But we do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. Now, for your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs with Joe Burrito can make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you guys would become a Locked On Colts Insider, chat with us directly, get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube where we listen to your podcast. We love you guys' ratings and reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.